Okay, welcome back to the Site Shed for part 2 of this series, where I'm joined by my co-host, Matt Jones from Cube Consulting. Yes, that's right, Matt Jones from Cube Consulting. We have the same name. If you missed from the last episode, we were talking about business mindset. It was a great episode. I encourage you to go back there and download that podcast. And if you liked it, of course, leave a review. In this episode, we're going to be talking about pricing for profit. And this is going to be a very interesting episode because I see it all the time, people not doing it correctly. So stay tuned and we're going to dive straight into that one.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Site Shed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Okay, welcome back to the microphone, Matt. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. No, you're welcome, mate. Thanks for joining us once again. And in the last episode, of course, we spoke about our business mindset. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about pricing for profit. Now, this is a pretty hot topic, and it's something that I see a lot pops up regularly. Tradespeople that we work with that probably aren't pricing properly, or they may be, guessing what they should be pricing properly. Why are we talking about pricing for profit as part of this series?
One of the key things about pricing for profit, it's all about making sure that as a business owner, you're actually delivering enough financially, to deliver your lifestyle. And it's not about what we see a lot of the time is people actually price to win jobs just to make sure that they keep busy. And obviously this leads into what we were talking about in the previous episode, really the business mindset, is that we need to make sure that when we win a job, we're making profit. We don't want to make sure that we're just winning a job to keeping things ticking over. And this is what we saw a lot to the detriment of a lot of businesses, post the GFC, 08, 09 and 10, whereas a lot of, century-old businesses that were pricing just at cost and, not really having a good understanding of their cost structures and what they need to deliver for profit because they were just trying to price to win the jobs. And unfortunately, a lot of those businesses now have gone down and, when the principal contractor goes down, takes a lot of subcontractors with them. And this is one of what we're passionate about because, we've seen a lot of people go down badly. And so it's one of those things, it's a really simple thing we can make sure that people actually price for profit. And what we're passionate about is, and what we talk to all business owners, you actually say, it's okay to say no to a job. Say, no, I'm not going to take that job.
Geez, I'll tell you what, Matt, I've worked in companies over the years, well, mainly in when I was working sort of in more the construction commercial field of plumbing, where we'd go into those jobs pricing it at cost and hoping to make money off variations. I mean, is that a common thing these days still? Or?
Yeah, no, it is a common thing. A lot of people still try and work out, making their money on variations, which is, it's rolling the dice, isn't it?
Oh, completely.
And when things are so tight and margins are so tight, it takes businesses down. And we still see a lot of people again that we've spoken to over a number of years, but they haven't really wanted to change their methodology or their thinking, and they're still struggling. Whereas the ones that get it, the ones that really buy into the pricing for profit, they're the ones that are a lot more selective of which jobs to go for. They're a lot more selective of which jobs to actually quote on. So what we're about is quote less, but quote more accurately, and profile those clients and the type of work that you're good at. So don't try and do things that you're not good at, that you haven't got the systems, the tools, the expertise, the team on board to do it. Because if you do it, you will lose money because it's too competitive.
I mean, this was the comment that now I sort of have a bit more clarity around it. Back in the day, I suppose I didn't, but the objection that I'd get with the owners of the company, and I would always say, why do you bother? Well, if we're going in at cost and we're hoping to make money through things like variations, then what's the point of doing it? And the argument that would always get back was, well, otherwise we won't win the job, we won't get any work. I suppose now when I look back on that, I think, well, we probably shouldn't have done that anyway. You don't want that kind of job. But then I suppose, from the owner's point of view, if that's all you know, I suppose their mentality is, well, it's better to have some work than no work. What's your take on that?
Yeah, no, it is a common problem, and that it stems back from, again, not really understanding. So from a pricing point of view and how we operate is, we work out exactly all your overheads for the year. In other words, what's it going to cost you on phones, insurances, vehicles? What do you as a business owner need to draw out of the business as a weekly wage? Making sure we calculate that as a business owner, you're going to be paid superannuation. You're factoring all the on costs. So we work out everything that's required for 12 months. We then work out okay, what's the desired profit? So as a business owner, if I want to draw, let's say $100,000 a year just for doing the job. Okay, there's no return on investment. That's just for me turning up, doing the job and getting paid superannuation, where I can get that if I was working for someone else, correct? So then we've got to work out, okay, as a business owner, I want to draw profit because that's my return on investment. And then I want to take $100K wage and I want to take $100,000 post-tax profit as my return on investment. So therefore, then we work back up. We say, okay, if you've got all these costs and this is your profit, then based on your current gross profit margins, you need to be selling X amount of turnover, and that then works out to. And look, it's a bit. We've got quite a sophisticated model to break it down, but then we work out, how many annual leave days you want to take off. We get all our clients to make sure they factor in that. You know what? We don't want to work any public holidays. You know what? We want to take 4 weeks annual leave a year. You know what? We've got to factor in, we're going to be sick for 10 days a year. We've got to factor all these days in, which then spits out an hourly rate. And that hourly rate tells us that if I charge this hourly rate every day based on the number of hours, taking into it less days lost and hours lost, that we're not going to be there. And if I do that every day, then I know that, if I get that, let's just say it's $100 an hour, that's covering me if I'm sick. That's covering me for taking holidays. That's covering all the boys as well for taking their holidays. And ultimately, when we achieve, when we hit the end of the year, that I've achieved that $100,000 for me personally as a wage, but then also I've taken that profit as a return investment as a business owner.
So would you say that when you speak to a client about pricing for profit, one of the common things that gets overlooked is a misunderstanding of what actually the overheads are and what they actually need to be charging to cover off on things like you said, phone, vehicles, rent, wages, all that kind of stuff?
100%. That's the number one thing. They underestimate their overheads. They just think, when I talk to a lot of clients, they say, no, I'm across my profitability. And they're very good at their direct costs. And the direct costs are, obviously materials, expense or subcontractors used. But when you factor in all your overheads of running vehicles, insurances, most people, I'm saying 99%, are not across it adequately. Most people are not factoring in, again, in the hourly rate that as a business owner, we're going to be away for 4 weeks. Each individual person is going to be away for 4 weeks of the year.
Yep.
We've got to factor in superannuation. We've got to factor in workers' compensation. So all these key things that are not factored in on the day-to-day basis, because most people just look at it from a week. They go, no, I'm sweet. All I need to do is earn X amount this week to cover everything. But as you know, that changes quite considerably over the course of a month, a quarter, and then a year.
Yeah.
When things are happening. So most people do not get that holistic view of what's about to take place, and again, the story of their business in terms of, okay, what do I need to run to invest in my business to ensure that I achieve X amount of turnover? So,
this all makes perfect sense. But then, how at the end of the day how do I ascertain whether or not my customers are going to be willing to pay that amount, or how do I establish that price when I compare it to maybe other companies in my competitors, for example?
Well, it's a pretty simple answer to that one. This is what I say to my clients all the time, because I always get that, and we always get that initial pushback, is I go back to the plan. So very clearly, and Matt, you're telling me you want to achieve, you require $100,000 wage for the year plus superannuation, correct?
Yeah.
You're telling me that you want $100,000 net profit at the end of the year, which is your return investment, because you need that because you want to buy another house, or you want to pay off your mortgage, or you want to take the family away on an overseas holiday, correct? You're telling me that's what your plan is.
Yep.
Therefore, would you agree, we've gone through all the overheads, that you need to charge out $100 an hour? Would you correct them, Matt? Correct?
Yeah.
So very clearly, if your current customers do not want to pay that much, there's two things you need to look at. Within the current market, you're talking to the wrong customers, and we need to go and find and educate new customers, because understands, most customers, once you set the ceiling of what you're pricing, it's very hard to move up. Or you may need to, as a business owner, you may need to say, you know what, this is not worth my investment. I'm not going to be flogging myself for another 5-10 years, busting my ass for nothing.
Yeah.
And then you've got to make the hard call of going, well, I need to get out of here.
Yeah.
Because the numbers are there, the facts are there. If you're telling me that I can only charge $50, well, man, I'm telling you, I look in my crystal ball, you're up for pain. You're going to always be struggling on cash. You're never going to get away on holidays. You're going to be working, busting your ass for 80, 90 hours a week.
Yeah, I suppose that's a realization that you've just got to tackle head on, isn't it? I mean, with any business, you've just got to look at head on and say, okay, well, is this actually worth it? Is this a viable business model? Is this worth my time?
Correct. And that's where, again, the mindset is so important. Once you get that business mindset, you start thinking like that. and you're open to thinking like that, to say, okay, shit, well, as a business owner, how do I need to tweak it? Now, what we get some people to do is we tweak it, and then we really get them to look at totally different customers or enter different markets, or where there's other different opportunities to position their brand. And this hence leads on to our next episode. We'll talk about brand planning, because from our belief and our methodology, you cannot start planning your brand unless you know your numbers and know exactly where your fit is.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. And I suppose once you do understand that, then it makes it a lot easier to diversify into other markets or to expand your brand or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, correct. Exactly right. Because you've really got that brand plan, that brand belief, and that brand confidence of that this is what we do. And it's all about building that credibility. Because most people, when they put a quote in, they just put a price in there, and what I call it's very sloppy. They don't educate their client of why they charge X. They just say, oh, here you go, there it is, I'm just going to do a job. And it's what we classify as the what. Most people, they just sell the what. So I'm a plumber. I've been a plumber for 50 years. I'm a qualified tradesman. I've got insurances. I've got a van, and here's the price for $1,000. As opposed to being educating the client, saying, hey, we're experts at this. We deliver value because we've got the best systems, the best pricing. I understand your problem is that, it's all about being in and out. You've got a high-end house and you don't want to have dirt anywhere. Well, this is what we do to eliminate your problem. And we roll out red carpet. We turn up on time. We make sure our guys are always there. So we're actually what we're doing is we're actually
selling the benefits.
Well, it's not only selling the benefits; it's really educating the client to make a better buying decision, and it's actually reducing buyer risk. Whereas if I'm reducing their risk by ticking off all these things by me as a business, identifying that I understand your problem, Mrs. Jones, better than anyone.
Yeah.
And then Mrs. Jones will sit back and go, geez, that's pretty cool. Yeah, these are exactly my problems, and I like those solutions. Whereas you start to wipe the price off the table. There are certain markets, there are certain cultures that, it's all about price, and that's cool. And some people, are built to deliver on those price competitive markets, which is great. But if you're all about value and all about, more high-end solutions, then you've got to find those clients that really appreciate what you deliver.
Yeah, and I suppose that pretty much answers one of the questions I did want to ask you was, how do I change my pricing structure and not annoy my clients? But then you've pretty much answered it by saying, well, you just need to educate them better about why you charge that much, what they're getting out of it.
Correct, that's right. And what I call about that, if you've got existing clients, some of them, again, might be hesitant to move, but you just need to sit down and actually have a great, what I call, conversation with the client. Yeah. Meet with them off-site, have a chat, say, hey, Mr. Client, we've been working with you for the last 10 years. Awesome. Just want to make sure we continue delivering the service to you. We're gearing up our systems. We're gearing up our team to make sure that we grow with you. But to do so, we may need to look at our pricing structure and put this in place. Do you see value in this? So it's all about just having a good conversation with existing clients, because it is harder to move an existing client.
Yeah. And so if after a client comes to you and you've helped them price for profit, what are some of the areas of their life that improve as a result of?
So one of the things is that they're not all things to all people. So they're their working hours are a lot less. They've got a lot less pressure on their cash flow. So they've got cash in bank. They've got a very clear plan about what they're trying to achieve and how they're going to deliver on their personal lifestyle. So all partners and husband and wife team or business partners are all excited about now that they're actually in control as opposed to guessing. And so as a result of that, their stress is a lot less. And again, they are totally confident that, whatever happens in the business is up to them. They have clear accountability, clear ownership, but they are very confident that, no, this is what I'm about. This is my plan. And as a result, they just get excited because we're measuring all the time against what we wanted to achieve, what our plan was and what we're actually delivering. And it's great when people are exceeding. And when I'm talking about exceeding, we get some people exceeding increasing their profit from $500,000 a year to, over $1 million a year, which is pretty substantial stuff and is really exciting.
Yeah, you're pretty happy with that, I think, regardless.
And in a sense, this is where part of the plan, this is where you want a good team on board, you're a good accounts person and accountant on board to minimise that tax and come up with good tax strategies and tax planning. So our methodology is you can't have one thing humming and the other thing falling apart. Everything needs to be working together because as business owners, we work hard. And as business owners, we want to make sure that we protect our wealth and we grow our wealth.
Yeah, I suppose as well, even from home life, your home life would improve. I mean, if you're pricing correctly and you're winning the work, then you're making more money and you have less financial stress at home. So even from that regard, things can improve.
Oh, look, that's the number one thing. Look, ultimately, that's what we're trying to drive and improve businesses for, is to take the stress off the business owner and the business owner's family. Because ultimately, my belief is that you want to be there for your kids if they're growing, or you want to be there for your wife, or you want to be going on nice holidays. It's amazing. We've seen people that have been working for flat out for starting a business, 3, 4, 5 years, and they've never taken a holiday.
Yeah.
I saw one gentleman, he come to one of our training sessions, and he hadn't seen the kids in like 3.5 weeks. He's working 7 days a week. He leaves at dark, comes home at dark. And he's got a young family, and they're in bed when he leaves and they're in bed when he wakes up. Now, that's not sustainable. And that's not the quality of what we can be. Again, he was stuck in that tradie mindset of just work, as opposed to take a breath, step back, let's get a plan, let's understand who we are and where we need to go to.
Yeah, and I suppose that ties in very strongly to the last episode when we were talking about mindset, evaluating actually what's important and what you want to get out of it more often than not, working 7 days a week and never seeing your family.
Yeah, no, that's not what we're about.
Yeah. Okay, so are there any typical tools or techniques that you recommend for the people can use to do this, or is this all part of that matrix that you guys have developed? Yeah,
it's part of our Cube, My Business Forecaster, where it's quite detailed. And in terms of pricing, the first point to start, which is often the hardest, is to really work out what is it costing you. And for a lot of people, you've got to go through your bank statements or your credit card statements, see all the direct debits that's coming out. You're paying $5 here, $10 here, $20 here, but it all adds up. But that's one of our key base tools, and part of our methodology is our pricing tool within the Cube Business Forecaster.
I mean, I suppose even for listeners out there, in order to get a bit of clarity over over finance, I mean, you can always use, I suppose, programs like Zero Accounting, where you can, every payment that comes through the business, you need to reconcile and justify, just so you get a bit of an overhead an overview as to what you're actually spending money on and where you might be able to tighten things up a bit.
Yeah, 100%. It's one of those things which part of our program, we can't do a lot of the things and a lot of our recommendation strategies without having the real up-to-date data in there. So we always, we recommend Zero or Mob to be totally up to speed because that then, we put in our budgets in there. That's how we compare exactly what we want to achieve to how we're actually going. And like you said, that bank reconciliation, who's paying us, who do we need to pay, who owes us money, who do we need to chase up. So they're all critical, financial tools and financial sort of strategies that need to be put in place on a weekly, daily, and monthly basis.
Yeah, and those programs as well, they also give you a lot of overview as to profit and loss and, things like that, statements that you can pretty much create at the push of a button, which is handy.
100%. The one thing I say about that is the old, shit in, shit out. So you got to make sure that you set up detailed chart of accounts, making sure that you're categorizing your sales, your cost of sale, and all your overheads, so it's detailed.
Yeah.
So you get that level of detail of reporting ongoing, especially as a business owner, we want to look back, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years of how we've gone, what costs have gone up, what costs have gone down, what type of market have we increased sales on, what's declining. So the only way to do that is to have the right, good, true, detailed chart of accounts.
Yeah, beautiful. So have we missed anything there?
No, look, I think the key thing there is, from a business point of view, one of the number one things that we tell people is best decision you can make often is saying no to a job.
Yeah, right.
Don't rush in, just say no. Because I prefer to go broke on the beach rather than go broke, working for someone that I'm losing money on.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think my takeaways from that would be, you must be making profit. And always go into business, you need to make profit to be sustainable. Understand your overheads is paramount. So, really sit down and analyze what your actual costs are. What are you spending money on monthly, weekly? Is it programs, tools, vehicles, rent, wages, electricity, whatever it is? Like, just understand what you're actually spending money on so you can establish that correct price point. Don't underestimate your overheads.
Yes.
They're often a lot greater than what you think they might be.
Correct.
And just know your numbers, keep in control. So don't pull the wool over your eyes there, although you might not always be pleasant to look at them, but, just be honest with yourself and, don't shy away from it.
No, so you need to be aware of it. You need to be able to interpret the numbers and be confident in those numbers, especially when it comes to pricing, that, if as a business owner, if I don't get this level of pricing, then I may as well not be in business.
Yeah.
I may as well go work for someone else, less stress, just work 40 hours a week, guaranteed pay, guaranteed 4 weeks holiday, guaranteed superannuation.
All right, great. Well, look, I think that's a wrap for this episode. Unless there's anything else you wanted to add, Matt?
No, I think we've covered it well there, Matt. Thank you.
Beautiful. Okay, so that wraps up episode 2 of this series. In the next episode, we're going to be talking about brand planning, which of course ties into the last 2 episodes. Thanks again, Matt, for stopping by, and we look forward to tuning into that next one.
Cheers, Matt. Thank you.
So if you haven't already, head across to thesiteshed.com and register for our Toolbox Talks, where you'll be regularly sent great episodes just like this straight to your inbox, so you'll never miss one. If you want to join the community, you can head across to thesiteshed.com/members, where for a small monthly fee, you'll get access to regularly updated training material, as well as access to our forum, where you can mingle and collaborate with trade-based business owners just like you from all over the world. If you're enjoying this podcast, please head across to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. We greatly appreciate it, and it helps us spread the word and reach the masses. Likewise, if you know anyone that might benefit from the content we create, then please go ahead and share this with them.
You've been listening to Toolbox Talks by The Site Shed. For more great content just like this, head across to thesiteshed.com and join the amazing community of savvy trade-based business owners.